We definitely see database development type opportunities. Is application development a hotter need right now? Yes. It doesn't mean that when an employer calls us, it's not urgent, because that's why they call us. But we are seeing those opportunities, but when I see them, it's more of a contract opportunity. And just, I know you had mentioned you're seeing a lot more contract, and I'm sure someone will ask me. We're seeing about 50-50 right now, contract versus direct hire. So I just wanted to put that out there. There definitely are direct hire opportunities out there. So, don't get put off that everything's contract. And there's nothing wrong with contracts. Contracts can be an awesome way to gain new skills and get your foot in the door somewhere. With relation to the medical industry, I think we will see more, especially with, the EMR systems popping up. It's definitely, everyone is joining the bandwagon on that, as they should. I think that we'll see more. I haven't seen a ton. We work with a few medical-related companies, but not specifically for the types of jobs that you're speaking of.
And my knowledge in that area isn't great either. The small businesses we work for usually have some out-of-the-box software that they're running to run their clinical side of the house, EMR. We've done some work with RGH recently on their electronic medical records EMR software. But I don't see a huge demand for the on the database side of the house. But again, most of that's because we're running out of the box.
Yeah, and I can only speak to my organization. We probably have a 5-to-1 developer to database administrator ratio. So we can get by with less DBAs, and we need a lot more developers. The developers are, we've got Oracle DBAs and SQL DBAs. But the developers, we have development going on in a lot of different, got Java developers, different types of web developers, and a lot of the web developers, or a lot of developers have very specific skills. Some have, multiple skills, different languages, things like that. But some of them, at least on our team, we've got a few that they don't cross over. There's certain specific skills. So where you can get away with one or two Oracle DBAs, and we've got 5 different developers sitting in front of them, developing in different language and different platforms.
I think you hit upon something really, really important. And it sounds like from the answers that I've been hearing here, what I kind of thought was basically true. I think, a DBA, the actual database instance, those sorts of things are almost becoming commodity. The software's out there, it runs, it doesn't take a lot of people to maintain it and all those other sorts of things. And the data that's being collected is it's mind-boggling. And what's becoming more and more important, and what people are starting to get more and more value out of, is figuring out how to analyze that data. And you'll hear a couple of terms people will use when they talk about it. You'll hear people talk about data mining. Data analytics is another one that you hear as well. And it's basically the idea of combing these databases and trying to find trends that aren't necessarily apparent. And you don't have to read very far to find some really interesting stuff that's going out there. I was trying to remember the city and I can't. It was either Chicago, LA, one of those two. But I just recently read an article where they decided to do some analysis of police calls and fire calls that were made in these areas, they were actually able to develop trends, and they started staffing their personnel based on the trends that they were seeing in the databases. So they were getting the responders out there before the things actually happened. It kind of makes me think of that movie Minority Report, you know? And that's just one example. You may have heard the other one. It hit the news not too long ago. Target started looking through some of the sales, and there were certain things that I think women started to buy just before they, announced that they were pregnant. So what Target started doing is sending coupons for specific items to these women, okay? And it was remarkably accurate. It's a real interesting story to see. The bottom line is that stuff is really becoming important. That data analytics, and at least a lot of the big companies are starting to put a lot of money into that because there's a lot of value in that. Like, as you said, the electronic footprint that we leave around and the data that's out there and the information that you can get from that data is really mind-boggling. And that's interesting to look at. Now, I don't know if there's many jobs in that particular area here in Rochester at this point, but that's definitely something that's on the horizon that I think is going to become, really big.
It's interesting that you bring that up because recently we've seen a lot more opportunities in QA, software testing, software test engineering, that sort of thing. So, and it's not all automated. I'm getting plenty of calls for manual testing, that sort of thing. So, I think the more developers you hire, the more applications you have, the more you'll see this need for testing these softwares. Again, I think any certifications are helpful. Any coursework you can take is helpful.
I couldn't hear you.
Any certifications or any coursework you can take will be helpful. It can be difficult to break into a new industry or a new part of software, so or any sort of development.
Search the keywords. Find out what the keywords are for that particular industry and search them.
I don't think I've got any experience with what MTA certification is, and if you don't have some database experience in the past, I think it's going to be confusing if it's all based around what I understand. But
Yeah, I'm not familiar. One thing I'd say about Microsoft certifications right now, Microsoft has seemed to have changed everything. For years it was MCSE, MCP, and those are pretty industry standard, common. They've changed it up quite a bit in the past few years, and I think even for folks like me who are in it, I've got people with these certifications on my staff. What they all mean these days is a little bit confusing, I think, for someone who isn't really up to speed on all the Microsoft certs, because they've changed them quite a bit. To speak to about the MTA for database, the only Microsoft sort of database type positions is SQL Server, SQL DBAs, and I'm more of an infrastructure person, so I can't really speak to too much on the database side of things.
Yeah, and I'm not going to talk about the certification because it's really kind of out of my area. But, I mean, as far as trying to figure out how to research these things, again, I think what I would do is turn to the web and kind of search for them. Again, I think these jobs are really kind of glitzy and glamorous, and they're really interesting. And I think there's going to be, down the road, I think a lot of people are going to be using those. How much demand there is here in the Rochester area for that right now, I'm not 100% sure. But still, I think what I would do is I would look on the web, poke around a little bit. There's, maybe go to some of the online courses that are offered by different universities, maybe to get a big, broad picture of what, the area looks like. And then maybe after you get kind of a broad picture, you could zero in on one particular area that maybe is of interest to you.
it seems over the last couple of years, as I've sort of analyzed, when do jobs pop up? Does it have anything to do with the calendar year, that sort of thing? I find that business analysts and project managers come in clumps. That might sound funny, but traditionally in the beginning of the year, and it held true from last year to this year, beginning of the year seems to be when I see the most project managers and BAs in Rochester. Now we'll get a couple sprinkled out throughout the rest of the year, but it seems like at the beginning of the year and maybe towards maybe third quarter we'll see some more. There are a few jobs out there now for BAs.
Do you have input? Yeah, I can say okay. For us, I mean, for Garlic, we run Oracle. We're manufacturing, so we have a number of business analysts, who have expertise in maybe Oracle financials, Oracle manufacturing, those types of things. And they do training. They are the go-between. So we do have those roles. They've been there for quite some time. I don't see us adding any. Unfortunately, I think at least the organizations I've been in, when times get tough, if there's any kind of reductions, BAs, project managers tend to be the first ones who get cut, so to speak, unfortunately. And I think I think I've seen a few organizations where you get rid of your full-time project managers and then you start looking on contract positions. We're not going to carry a team of project managers because let's say when the economy went down, over the past couple of years, projects stopped. There wasn't investment, there weren't big projects going on. So you've got project managers on staff managing no projects. So I think a lot of organizations think they can get by without having dedicated project managers. I mean, I'm an infrastructure manager, so I do a lot of project management myself, but I'm not a project manager, it's my full-time role. But I sort of wear those hats on some smaller projects. I am the PM. On big cross-functional, cross-department, cross-organizational projects, yeah, we have a PM. But for a really hardcore infrastructure project, like just a networking upgrade, telephony, something like that, a lot of times I serve as the PM or one of the higher-level technicians, systems administrator, network administrator. They might serve as the PM. So.
I think it's doable. I think that if you have absolutely no IT background, would that be an ideal candidate? Maybe, maybe not. But I think that if you want to break into IT sales, it would be beneficial to get yourself involved in maybe IT blogging, or maybe take some coursework, or anything to get you in the IT community so you have a general understanding of what do people do in this field, how could I sell this product, that type of thing.
Could you recommend any blogs?
Let me think about it.
Okay.
And the question was about a sales professional?
Yes.
Being a sales organization, I can speak to that. I'll tell you that out of my 5 salespeople, only one of them has any kind of degree in computers. 2 of them, I would say, probably don't have even a huge interest in computers, but have some experience in it. 2 of them live and breathe computers and drive me nuts at times. But, so I think it depends. I don't think you have to have a lot of technical knowledge, but it certainly has, that you're reading up on sites. In my industry, Tom's Hardware is a great site to look at to see what new technologies are out there. But there's a number of them, a number of the really information and magazine sites these days that you can take a look at. So.
Thank you.
I can't really speak to this too much. I'm sort of on the other side. I mean, I get approached by salespeople all the time. I really don't ever answer my phone because it's all the sales come. But I've worked with a number of, a lot of local IT services companies, and for sales folks, they seem to change. There's definitely a lot of movement. I think if you can sell, you can sell. It's about relationships. But I think to get your foot in the door, I mean, you have to have some credibility. You can't just use a lot of buzzwords and phrases. But you know, some organizations are really good. They have a lot of good sales engineers. So I mean, if you're just that a first line sales professional, you're setting up the meetings to get your foot in the door. You know, if you don't have, at least in my experience, if a salesperson just shows up for an initial meeting, I'm probably going to want to get into some specific questions. So you know, I like to see them bring along someone who, you know, maybe one of their technicians or a pre-sales engineer or something like that. Someone who can answer my very specific technology question.
Yeah, my answer is going to be very similar. I mean, I'm on the receiving end. You know, I'm not on the preparation end. And the things that I wanted to say is that at least it's been my experience that typically when when someone does a sales call with me, usually it's two people, and one of them has the technical expertise, and the other person is the one who primarily does the sales. But the one thing that I did want to say is that one of the things that people who are into technology can usually tell very quickly is when you don't know your stuff. Okay, and I don't think you need to have a degree. You know, you certainly don't have to be a rocket scientist, so to speak, in technology, but you definitely need to know what you're talking about so that, you know, if I'm talking to a salesperson and it's clear they're throwing these buzzwords around and they really don't have any idea what they're talking about, that's probably not going to give me a lot of confidence to buy a product from that particular individual.
I think what I see is it really depends on the company. Some companies really value the types of projects that you've been involved with. You know, have you done what we need done? Have you done that in the past? Some companies, it's really based on, you know, what's your methodology for project management? Do you follow PMP type methodology? Do you have your own? What's been your experience? So it really just depends on the company.
Yeah, I can just speak to what we've done over the past year or so. I mean, we have added some PMs, and I don't think it's been specific. You know, it's what type of projects have you worked on in the past? You know, are they somewhat applicable? But methodology is a big one. You know, certain organizations have project management. They may have established methodology that they use. If you're not familiar with that at all, that could be a barrier. I think. You know, trying to transition from maybe the hardware side into software, getting up to speed on project management for software, you know, software development lifecycle, things like that would go a long way. But I don't think it's a barrier that you can't transition into the software side.
Is CMM still the like life cycle track to follow, or are there other ways of looking at that process? Capability maturity model is what I was talking about.
I can't speak.
Okay. All right.
Well, maybe I can answer that a little bit.
Okay.
I'm computer science. I'm not software engineer, so my software engineering friends may cringe when I answer this question. But one of the things that I've seen, at least in terms of software, is when I got started, it was pretty much the waterfall model for development. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of new development technologies out there, and most of them are these agile development strategies. So you'll hear things like. It's escaping me. Scrum is the one that I always think of, but there's another one. It was the one that led this all off. It was stand-up meetings and the rest of it. I can't.
Extreme programming?
Extreme programming, thanks, yeah. But there's a lot of these agile technology development cycles that are out there now that a lot of companies that I'm aware of are using, you know. And, you know, if you were looking if you are familiar with CMM, waterfall, that sort of stuff, and if you were looking to transition maybe into software, it would probably be helpful to you to look into some of those newer models that are out there, so at least you're versed in them and talk a little bit about them.
Very good, thank you.
Yeah, just to add on that, I mean, for where we are, it's a blend, so we are seeing, depends on the type of project, you know what I mean? They use different methodologies, so what you said, like Agile, things like that. Some of our developers are using those, where it's always been typically like the waterfall sort of methodology. They're starting to use different approaches for different types of projects. So I think being well versed in the different approaches is a good thing.
I think my advice to you might be to think about the skills that you have in imaging. I mean, when I think about the sorts of things that you've probably been doing in imaging, is you've probably been analyzing images, trying to extract information out of those images and trying to draw some sort of conclusions or whatever out of it. It seems to me that that same skill set is applicable to other areas. We were talking about data analytics. I would imagine those same sort of analysis skills that you've developed are probably applicable in other areas. So I'm not 100% sure how important it would be for you to know object-oriented programming. It might not hurt, but I have a feeling that your contribution, where you might be more attracted to an employer, is to try to figure out how you might be able to leverage those analysis skills that you've been applying to images for so long to another area. So, I mean, I think that's what I might suggest that you do. And again, as far as courses to take, I don't know if I would focus on object-oriented programming courses. What you might want to do instead is maybe take a course in data mining or data analytics and see what that's about, maybe so that you can get a better idea about how you could transfer some of the skills that you have over to that particular area.
Those courses are offered at RIT?
We have courses like that at RIT. You probably can find some of those at U of R. You certainly can find those courses online too. That might be a cheaper option.
Data mining and
data mining, data analytics, those are kind of the buzzwords that people use for that sort of stuff today.